John, back on the 24th of January 1971, you were a mere schoolboy, but actually quite heavily involved in the events around leading up to the big move.
Yes, I was only a spotty 15-year-old at the time, but a regular volunteer at Newport, and in the weeks and days leading up to the move, was involved in clearing the track from Newport to Hayden Street and loading wagons at Newport, and one or two trips to and from Hayden Street with the tram, loaded up with barrels of water and other pieces of equipment, barrels of water to replenish the engine's tanks when it got there. Yeah.
Trains hadn't run on that piece of line for the best part of 4 or 5 years, in fact, and a lot of kit had been assembled at Newport. Was it just sort of like organised chaos, and then thinking, goodness, how the heck are we going to get all this stuff that 3 or 4 miles along an overgrown and pretty ropey old line?
It probably was the organised chaos at the time, but yeah, so a gang of lads of similar age, and we would start off on Fairley Bank and clearing undergrowth, and then gradually progress further towards Whippingham. But of course, we never got the track completely cleared before the call came to get on with the move, and so the first part of Fairley Bank was pretty well pristine, but there were some sizable shrubs and saplings on the track further along.
You mentioned a few moments ago the tram. A lot of the day, people's memories or the pictures we see really focus on number 24 and so on. But the tram actually had a pretty substantial role leading up to and on the day itself.
Oh, it did. The tram was the first movement out of Newport on the day. I think with Terry Hastings and John Wenyon in charge. But certainly in the days before the move, it had made quite a number of trips to Hayden Street. I remember the first time that I went with the old tram, again loaded up with barrels of water, and there was a particular sapling in the undergrowth that managed to turn the fuel tap off on the tram, and it came to a halt, and there was a lot of head scratching until somebody actually identified the problem, and the offending small tree was removed.
I mentioned there that the tram, one of its duties was transporting barrels of water. That's because at Hayden Street there was just nothing. I mean, there's the photos of Hayden Street 1970 and 71. It is just completely bare. I mean, what was there? What was at Hayden Street in 71?
Just the basic running line and loop, an overgrown platform, and a boarded up station building. No facilities, no water supply, and of course there wasn't even a proper water supply at Newport at that time, because I think that had been turned off in the period leading up to the move.
Track slip at Woodhams caused all sorts of problems. Again, there's photos and there's other memories of getting across that slip. Just how dubious was it?
I think until the first train had actually got across, nobody really knew, and fortunately it worked. And for the rest of the day, the mud on Calbourne's wheels was quite visible as evidence of the problem.
On the day itself, the day dawned. When you arrived at Newport Station, what was happening? What was the activity? What was it? Busy, or nice, well-ordered calm?
Well, I arrived just as the tram was heading out on its first run. Calbourne was being prepared. The carriages had all been shunted to the north end of the station, and when 24 was ready, the tram had gone. The engine went to collect the first 3 carriages, and a test trip was made out onto the viaduct, because the viaduct hadn't carried a full train, the full weight of a train for several years, set back into the platform. And it's incredible to think today that yes, that train actually carried people.
Looking back, just on those few days and those few weeks, and then thinking forward, right, we've arrived at Hayden Street now. What are we going to do? What was the activity in that period of time from the 24th of January until the 12th of April, when the Isle of Wight Steam Railway actually opened to the public?
Some basic clearance and tidying at Hayden Street. There were also several trips back to Newport to collect more equipment, and I seem to recall there was even talk of taking an engineer's train back to Newport before the scrapman had dismantled everything, to collect point work which the WLS had bought at Newport, but that didn't happen. And gradually the scrap merchants were dismantling everything all around us, and before very long, all that was left was the last little bit between Hayden Street and Woodhams.
50 years on, looking back, what's your enduring memory of the 24th of January 1971? Sadness, happiness that there were new beginnings? What was the emotion?
I think there was a feeling of hope. There had been so much uncertainty whether or not the vet trail scheme would come to fruition. We'd seen so much destruction around Newport, destruction of carriages and engines over the last few years, and perhaps finally there was hope that something could be established at Hayden Street. It was a new beginning.
John Woodhams, 50 years on, thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.